Welcome back in, everybody. Another edition of Name Brand, Off Brand coming at you right now. Today, we did wide receivers. Let's move on to some other positions. Let's look at quarterbacks. And if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, which Adam did an incredible job at, we're going to look at Joey B, Joe Burrow, and one Kirk Cousins. Now, Adam, I don't think their dynasty value can be any different. Right, we talk about some of these receivers. They're pretty close, maybe a couple rounds. We're talking about a guy who goes top 5 startup picks, pretty close. Yeah. Versus a guy who's 5th, 6th round. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. So let's look at it by the numbers. Last year, what they did. Week 1, Joe Burrow, 21st quarterback. Kirk Cousins, 14th. Week 2, 25 for Joe Burrow, 6 for Kirk Cousins. Week 3.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure, baby. 15 for Joe Burrow. Boom. We got a nice above average startable week in best ball out of Joe Burrow. Finally, week 3. Granted, he's coming off the ACL, right? So a slow start's kind of to be expected. Kirk Cousins, the QB 5, number 5 overall. Captain Kirk, number 5. All right, next week. This is where Joe Burrow starts to take off and get a little bit of an edge, right, these next 2 weeks. So he's QB 11 and QB 16, respectively. Kirk Cousins, QB 28, QB 21, right? Then we go Joe Burrow, QB 8. Wow, what a great week for him. Kirk Cousins comes in and snipes him, right? QB 2 overall. Adam.
Not so fast, my friend.
Get the fuck out of here. QB 2?
Yeah, man.
Wow, Captain Kirk.
Yeah. You like that? You like that?
I do like that, Kirk. I do like that.
Number right. 2, I like it very much.
Joe Burrow comes back. He says, I got you. He's QB2 overall on the entire week. Kirk Cousins on a bye. Following that bye week for Kirk Cousins, he's 21. Joe Burrow is 9. 24 for Joe Burrow the following week. QB6 for Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk is QB7 on the week that Joe Burrow is on his bye. Adam, QB21, Joe Burrow coming off the bye. Kirk Cousins, QB6. Mr. Consistent. All right, both QB1s the following week, 10 and 12 respectively. Joe Burrow 10, Kirk 12, 9 and 7. Joe Burrow 9, Kirk Cousins 7 the following week after that. Joe Burrow, QB9, Kirk Cousins, QB19. Following week after that, neither one of them got an above average week. QB20 for Joe Burrow, QB23 for Kirk Cousins. And then we know to end the year, week 16 and 17, right? Your fantasy playoffs, your championship, your semifinals. Joe Burrow, QB1 overall for both of those weeks. 2 weeks, QB1. Kirk Cousins was QB11. And then we had the debacle, right? Was he hurt? Was he not feeling right? Vikings out of it because he didn't play that week. Was that the week that Mike Zimmer came out and said, I don't need to see Kellen Mond because I see him in practice?
I see him in practice, yeah. Yep, exactly right, man.
And then in the year, week 18, Joe Burrow didn't play. Playoffs already locked up. Kirk Cousins was QB10, but it didn't really affect anything for fantasy purposes. But spike weeks, Adam, what I like to look at in best ball. Joe Burrow, 3. Kirk Cousins, 2. Consistent, above average weeks. Startable weeks, Joe Burrow, 11. Kirk Cousins, 11. So all we're talking about is a separation of one spike week here, Adam. They actually came out and composite score for us on our spike week consistency, 14.99 and 13.66. So very close. Finished the year QB8 for Joe Burrow, QB10 for Kirk Cousins. So very similar going through, but a massive value gap. What did you want to touch on with these two, Adam? What do the people need to know between the name brand, Joe Burrow, and the off brand, the discount, the members mark? Kirk Cousins, Captain Kirk.
This is one. There's several things to touch on. Try to keep this, as a timely video. I'm not going to get to every point I want to make, but one thing I do want to talk about is one of the big things at quarterback, especially, right? We talked about receiver. We'll talk about running back and tight end at some point here too. But at quarterback, it seems that there's this age fear at quarterback where I'm going to have Joe Burrow for 15 years. And Kirk Cousins, man, he might be out of a job in 2, maybe even next year. Like, I think the age thing at quarterback especially gets really, really overplayed as far as the value in Dynasty. If you play like us, Mike and myself, there's not a ton of players that are going to be on our teams for 2, 3 seasons. I mean, let alone 15. Come on, stop it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Secondly, Mike, you talked about how there's a spike week separating these two in production. And when you look at so many things for Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow, people will tell you that based on value and what they remember at the end of the year with Joe Burrow, like this guy's just, he's so different. But really the person that's actually different, Mike, and he's just so slept on is Kirk Cousins, the off-brand, the great off-brand. 1 in pressure throws, 3 in money throws, 9 in the league in air yards, 2 in deep ball attempts, 6 in pace of play. Mike, they're talking about opening the offense up more this year.
Yeah, holy shit.
Mike, I mean, production premium number 3. There is, I mean, littered. He is littered with top 10 categories as far as like advanced metrics. And he has not treated anything close to such. And I think with Joe Burrow, one of the ones to really keep in mind here, in the top tier guys, especially if we're talking best ball, I understand if it's lineup and best ball is different. Especially in best ball, he'd be one I'm exploring getting to an off-brand and trying to get a plethora on the dynasty value.
I think you're 100% right. Generally, I like to stick to my tier downs, nice and easy. A 2 for 1. I'll trade away Joe Burrow. I'll get Captain Kirk in a first. I don't think that does it justice, though, with the discrepancy in value, right? You can get way more than a first added on top.
Way more.
Whether that's a couple seconds, whether that's, one of these guys that we think at the receiver position where people are on the like, are they worth a first or are they not worth a first? I'm thinking of guys that we like, the Elijah Moore, the Devontae Smith, the Brandon Ayuk. I mean, Adam, you send me an offer on any kind of a contender where I send away my Joe Burrow, even in a lineup league, my Joe Burrow for your Kirk Cousins, a first, a future first, and one of those guys, I'm going to do backflips in excitement on how fast I will accept that. In a best ball league, it's not even fucking close. Not even close. I'll take that all the time. Joe Burrow is one of those guys where I like the talent. I like the player. I like the human being. Like, he's a fun guy to watch. But I think we've gotten a little bit over our skis. Now, some of that is I don't know how much we can factor in poor offensive line, first year back coming off an ACL, a little bit of a ramp-up time. But he's surrounded by weapons. It's just the numbers don't match up to where the hype and the value got to already. And I think there's a pretty big discrepancy where you can exploit that in your leagues. And I know I've taken advantage of it already with the Burrow for Watson. I don't remember what else I got on top, but quite a bit.
Noah Fant a first, I think, or something crazy.
Yeah, those kind of trades that you can make where you can get those done. So, I mean, if we're talking about taking Watson out of the equation, and like instead of trading for Watson, I was trading for Kirk.
Mike, well,
what else could I have gotten?
For sure. And this is there's a couple things here. So one, when you get to the ADP, all right, so to give you an idea of ADP gap, Joe Burrow is going at the 105. We've already touched on that. Kirk Cousins is the 603. So you're looking at what is dynasty value in ADP, quarterback 4 and quarterback 20. Now, obviously, because Superflex is quarterback's king, the price and the difference there is quite a bit in perceived value. So, Mike, when you go over to our friends at Keep Trade Cut, right? You just plug in the 2 names, trade calculator, players to even the trade. I mean, it's laughable. Their thing is just insane. These players are Kyle Pitts, Najee Harris, CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams. Keep Trade Cut. There's exploitation here. Let's not get crazy. Mm-hmm. But, Mike, what I do want to tell you, very similar. It was not actually Joe Burrow, but very similarly ranked in ADP and in value. Kyler Murray. Currently going at the 108, but they're very similarly valued. I'll give you a real-life trade of name brand, off brand. Okay, so I want you to think about this. This is a orphan of mine, and I take over this team, and you kind of have to go with what the league dynamics are. So I wanted to rebuild. They didn't let me do it. So I had to think, tear down, name brand, off brand. How do I get value? So I traded away my Kyler Murray, and I got back for Kyler Murray the Kirk Cousins trade here. So you're looking at Kirk Cousins, Deontay Johnson, and 2 firsts for essentially Kyler Murray, Tyler Conklin, and Randall Cobb, some throw-ins. I then flipped those firsts for Terry McLaurin and Joe Mixon.
No.
I had to throw in Brandon Ayuk as well. But when you look at the net, when you go to the name brand and off brand, so I dropped from Kyler Murray to Kirk Cousins, and my net was Deontay Johnson, Joe Mixon, and Terry McLaurin to make this team contend. And I still have Kirk Cousins for probably another 2 seasons. And I lost out on Brandon Ayuk and basically Kyler Murray. So when you go from the name brand, off brand here, I want you to understand that, yeah, you probably kind of puked in your mouth when you think about Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins as far as dynasty value. But when you think about the difference in cost and what you can do with that money, you should really explore the off brand.
All right. So Adiko has a fabulous tool, right? His trade finder, going through all sleeper leagues, real leagues. So I type in Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins, and what pops up at him? So March 31st, the most recent trade, because we don't have a lot of them. I think about all the sleeper dynasty leagues. I got 3 trades that I can pull up here from 2022. That's it. 3 trades. So something that's not being done. But the very first one I pulled up, Joe Burrow, one side. That's it. The only player. And in return, Terry McLaurin, Kirk Cousins, Cortland Sutton, and the 22-209. So that pick is probably just a whatever pick. But think about that.
That's Trey McBride and ADP.
There you go. 4 pieces, Adam. 4 pieces. The other one that I have that I pulled up, Joe Burrow, 1 piece for Kirk Cousins, Elijah Mitchell, a 23 first, and the 211 in 2022.
Wow.
Like, I'm not an Elijah Mitchell guy, right? Cautious optimism.
Sure, right.
Is what you have. The
Yep.
23 first is nice, and we talked about it. Like, you can add multiple things on there. I get the second round pick, 211, just kind of whatever. But if you believe in Elijah Mitchell, or you think you can move Elijah Mitchell again for something similar to like a late first type value, or maybe an early second type value, or maybe a multiple seconds, however you wanted to split it, or whatever you think his value is, that's another piece, Adam. Now you're getting the first, Kirk Cousins, and a couple seconds added onto it. That's a move I would strongly consider, even if it is for a guy like Elijah Mitchell. So just something to think about there when you're dealing the name brand of Joe Burrow. I get it, the whole age reset thing, and I'll caveat it too. Like, I like Joe Burrow. I don't know how much the ACL played into it. His weapons are fantastic, but you touched on one thing that gets you a little bit excited about Kirk Cousins is all the top 10 metrics he already had, and then all the reports about, man, this offense is going to get opened up. We're going away from the old Mike Zimmer ground and pound, feed Dalvin Cook a billion times. It's going to be spread out Justin Jefferson, spread out KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, Irv Smith's going to be a big deal. Dalvin Cook's going to play more wide receiver, split out wide. We're going to open this offense up, and we're going to go to town on a team that has a horrible defense, right? Their defense is reeling and has been reeling for a couple of years. That's something that should get you excited in fantasy football. And even if you get Kirk for another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I mean, you're looking at a guy who may be 37 and still playing at a high level. Hell, sign me up. In Dynasty, that's as far out as like I'm willing to look. I'm not going to look at 10 years of Joe Burrow. I'm going to look at what I can get for the next 3 or 4 years while I try to go win myself a championship. So I only need to win it once in that time frame to come away with a profit. So that's how I look at it. Name brand, off brand, Joey B, Captain Kirk. And just remember, Kirk Cousins.
You like that? You like that?
God
damn it, Kirk, I do like that.
I like that, baby. I like that. Go explore it, man. Name brand versus off brand. See what the tear down will net you.
That's going to do it. Tune in next week. We will continue to look at name brand, off brand with another set of quarterbacks before we move on to our favorite positions, the running back. But make sure you're tapping in, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, comment away. We want to hear from you. You're the people who make this go. And if you got a suggestion of a name brand or an off brand, somebody close that you'd like to be compared, drop it down below. We appreciate you. We're out of here. Peace.